John, I want to introduce you to Carolyn Bessette. Carolyn, this is John Kennedy.
Because there have been some family members who are, of course, still alive. I know Jack Schlossberg has been a bit critical of the piece. How do you guys want the family to embrace this show, and what do you want them to take away from it?
I think what anybody will see once they watch the show is that it is a love story. It is, and it is written with an enormous amount of love, compassion, respect for these characters and for who they were and what they meant, and actually the challenges, and try to really give audiences an opportunity to walk in their shoes, and particularly through Carolyn's eyes as that person who is the every person, but also an every person who, what I love about her as a character too, which is that she was like going places and doing things and like on this kind of great ride at that time in her life that I think even people are very nostalgic for that, the like kind of moment where you kind of become self-made and you chase your dreams and you get noticed and your boss notices you're great and you're moving up. And she was really on such a positive trajectory when she met him, and that scrutiny just really destroyed her sense of self and was this large kind of destructive force in their lives. And so we try to just come to it with as much compassion, respect, empathy, and I think that once people see the show and realize that is the tenor of the show, it's not a hagiography. It's not to say they're perfect, because there's no love story that isn't fueled by both the conflict outside of the relationship and the conflict inside of a relationship. But I think once people see the show, I think that some of those fears will really be contextualized as that's not the show we're making. We're not making a gotcha show. Mm-hmm. We're not making a prurient show. We're making a very empathic show that really loves these characters.
There's a lot of trade-offs being with someone like that. Shiny people, they belong to everyone.
I found myself putting myself in her shoes, right? Where you think, well, this is a young girl who has everything going for her. Would she give it all up? And I don't know the answer to that, and I think you guys did a really good job with that. Were you able to consult with anyone from the family? Was anyone involved in this process in that way?
We relied heavily on Elizabeth Beller's book, Once Upon a Time, which is a really well-researched book. We also had about 9 consultants just in terms of working with us on the aesthetics and the hair. But when we do these shows, we really try to rely on primary source materials, because if you go out and start interviewing one person, then you really need to interview everybody, because you'll have to have all points of views, and people have different memories and different perspectives. And our challenge is to read all the material and for Connor to sift through that and sort of balance competing narratives and decide, okay, this is what feels emotionally true.
In that sense, Connor, how did you decipher between the scenes you made sure you needed and some that were left out ultimately? Like, of course, the fight scene is such a critical moment in their life, and I found myself looking up pictures, and you were so spot on. How did you kind of write and decide what to keep in and what to leave out?
I mean, at the end of the day, we're servicing this relationship, this love story specifically, right? It's not just a biopic of either one of them. And so I think we had to ask ourselves, is this servicing the story of this marriage and this courtship, first and foremost? And I think you read everything under the sun, you take everything with a grain of salt, knowing that people have different perspective, and as Brad said, people have different memories. And also, I think a lot of the coverage that she had at the time was frankly quite misogynistic. And so you really had to sift through some of the stories to take out the kernels of truth that felt fair and balanced, but were often kind of cushioned with which felt like disdain or a lack of veracity in order to really do justice for the two of them.
You can talk about the Battery Park scene specifically, I think.
Right.
It was so well done.
Kim Rosenstock, who wrote that episode so beautifully, we spent a lot of time on that fight, especially because it's documented so meticulously, and it takes place in stages, in that they're in the park, they're on a bench, they're on the sidewalk, and so we had to make sure that what we were writing also match the emotionality of those images as well, and so that it felt fair and that it felt accurate, but also that it still aligned with sort of the greater story that we were telling with the narrative of the show.
Well, you did a very nice job.
Thank you.
There isn't enough exposure in the world to prepare a woman to be your wife.
It's not a question of if I want to spend the rest of my life with you. It's a question of if I'm cut out to be Mrs. JFK Jr.
I just love your favorite scene to film, favorite moment from everything.
I mean, mine was the wedding, because we had recreated that church,
Wow.
and because we had almost our entire cast there, and it felt like a wedding,
yeah.
and that everyone was getting ferried up. You know, if you've ever been to a
Yes,
destination
yes.
wedding, everyone's being ferried up together on these roads, and they were all dressed so well, and they're waiting for the ceremony to start and waiting for our cameras to roll, but also because we were able to really recreate that magic moment where, you know, by chance they'd lost the light and there was no electricity in that church, and so they just put candles everywhere, and we lit them by candlelight, and we'd spent all this time together, and the tears in that wedding I felt like were real, and it really felt like our cast was incredibly bonded right in that moment.
Yeah, you
And-
can feel that.
I think I've watched the scene where they meet at the party 50 times. I can't get enough of it. It's just so the performances, but also just seeing these two people that would become what they became, but seeing them in that first moment when they're just two people trying to get to know each other. I think there's something so sweet and beautiful about it in the way that they perform that scene. I just think it's
It's like the perfect meet cute.
Yes.
It's not even a meet cute, it's a meet beautiful.
yes,
Yeah.
it's just stunning looking, and everything about it I love.
Fame takes some things away from you, but it gives you more.
I was listening to an interview with Ryan Murphy, and he said over 88 films and TV about the Kennedys have been done. Why do you guys believe there is still such a lure and interest in this family?
I mean, I don't think we have really anything close to royalty. And the Kennedys have been such a presence as politicians, as public servants in this country, you know, for over half a century. And so I think so many people have a special relationship of some kind with a different generation or a different member of the family. And yeah, I just think they sort of have an unparalleled presence in our culture and our history.
Yeah. How did you guys go about mapping out what you wanted to keep in? Because there's so much gossip and stories and rumors about this family, about this couple. How did you decide what you really wanted to focus on?
I mean, we wanted to make a sincere show. We wanted to make a show. We love these characters. We love John and Carolyn. And we wanted to make a show that sort of celebrated their lives, that didn't pull its punches, that showed the difficulties that they went through. And they were real people with flaws, but also what it was like specifically for her, which I think is the genius way of Connor's way in, which is that she was a normal person. She was somebody who worked in the Calvin Klein store in Boston and got elevated through that to this world of glamour and privilege, and what it was like for her to enter into one of the most famous families in America, to marry this person who everybody felt like they had ownership of. Remember, people's first lasting image of John F. Kennedy Jr. was him saluting his slain father's casket. We watched him grow up. When he graduated from college, it was front page news. When he didn't pass the bar, it was front page news. People felt like they had an ownership of them. And we wanted to show what it was like to marry into that and become incredibly famous. But we wanted to do it as a celebration. And so while it does show the drama of their lives, there was a lot of really negative, brutal things written about her at the time. Everybody now thinks everybody loved her, but in fact, she was trailed by the paparazzi. They called her the worst names. As glamorous and beautiful as people can see she is now, people thought she had an unusual face, or she didn't wear the clothes that she should have. She was taken apart in so many ways,
Sure.
and there was a lot of negative people who wrote a lot of trashy things about her in the immediate aftermath, and we really wanted to be a corrective to that with this show.
There's your world, and then there's mine.
Every story needs an angle. A happy couple doesn't sell papers.
And I think you guys did such a really good job, because I didn't realize that, right? We remember her as this icon, yet they were horrible to her.
Horrible.
And it's the paparazzi in that time is, I was a little young, but I didn't realize just the way they were treating them. So, you know, shifting to some of the early criticism, I found myself thinking, well, this is a little bit of how they must have felt. Like, you guys were criticized a little bit for Sarah's hair color, but it wasn't even, no one had seen the show, which was a little bit unfair. How did you handle some of that early criticism?
It was rough. I mean, look, usually when you're making a show, you make it over 9 months. Nobody's paying attention to you, and as you're making it, you're adjusting it as you go along. People aren't taking photographs with their cameras and putting it up. They just see it through your cameras. And so I think it was really complicated for Sarah Pidgeon, who's incredible, to suddenly have a similar level of attention on her. We would have 25 paparazzi criticizing the hair. And look, we learned some things from that feedback, and we adjusted. We did adjust her hair. We did adjust some of the wardrobe. I think that you'll find when you watch the show, she's wearing real pieces that Carolyn wore. When we couldn't find the real pieces, we sourced either similar items or we recreated them meticulously from scratch. We got her hair, I think, in a beautiful place. Mm-hmm. But I think for her, there was something really meta about it, because she was being torn apart in the same way Carolyn was.
Yeah, in so
was
many
tough.
ways. I totally felt for her in watching that, kind of now that I've seen it on display.
You understand? This family means something to people.
Everything in my life has changed.
You'll never be given the benefit of the doubt again, Carolyn. The whole world will be watching you.
They won't leave it alone.
It's your choice what you want them to see.